Hello students, today we are going to learn about suspension system. So first of all, let us understand what a suspension system is. So suspension system of a vehicle refers to a group of mechanical components that connect the wheels to the frame or the body. So let us consider this is the body of a car. Okay, this is the frame or chassis of this vehicle. So there are wheels attached to the frame. So this is the body. So there are springs here which are attaching the body of the vehicle to the frame of the vehicle. So these springs or these mechanical components which are connecting the wheels to the frame or body of the vehicle is called as, collectively these components are called as suspension system. So suspension system of a vehicle refers to the group of mechanical components that connect the wheels to the frame or body of the vehicle. Now we will see what the definition of this suspension system is. So automobile chassis is mounted on the axle through some form of springs. So this chassis is mounted on the axle of the vehicle through springs. So that is nothing but the same as the mechanical components. Those are the springs. They are joining or attaching the chassis to the body of the vehicle. So why we are attaching it with the help of springs? So we are attaching it with the help of springs so that we will isolate the vehicle body from road shocks which may be in the form of bounce, pitch, roll or sway. So when the road is uneven, then the vehicle may bounce, it may roll or it may sway about. So there will be shocks which will be formed because of this bounce, pitch, roll or sway. So if these springs are not present, then there will be road shocks which will pass to the body of the vehicle and the passengers who are seated inside the vehicle. So to protect the body of the vehicle as well as the people occupying the space in the vehicle from the road shocks, we are using these springs which will connect the chassis to the body of the vehicle. So the automobile chassis is mounted on the axles through some form of springs. So this is done to isolate vehicle body from the road shocks which may be in the form of bounce, pitch, roll or So these road shocks may cause an uncomfortable ride and also cause additional stress in the automobile frame and body. So we can define suspension system as all the parts which perform the function of isolating the vehicle from road shocks are called as suspension system. So all parts which isolate the vehicle from the road shocks are collectively called as suspension system. So here parts are mechanical components. So different types of components which are used in this suspension system are linkages, types of components in suspension system, springs, linkages, and we have so there are different types of suspension springs. So even there are different types of linkages, suspension springs, and shock absorbers also. So shock absorbers, we will study about the springs in detail. Shock absorbers are of two types, which may be air or it may be hydraulic. Now let us see the objectives of a suspension system. So objectives of suspension system. So what are the objectives of this system? So the first and the main objective is to prevent the road shocks from being transmitted to the vehicle component. So the suspension system will prevent the road shocks from being transmitted to the vehicle components. So to prevent the road shocks from being transmitted to vehicle components. Then the second objective is to safeguard the occupants from road shocks. So whoever is seated in the vehicle, they are saved from the road shocks with the help of these suspension systems. The third objective is to preserve the stability of the vehicle in pitching or rolling while in motion. So the suspension system will preserve the stability of the vehicle. It will not allow it to sway in pitching or rolling while in motion. So these are the objectives of this suspension system. Now we will look into the types of suspension springs. So the components of suspension we have discussed, they are springs, linkages, and shock absorbers. So we are going to see types of suspension springs. So what are the different types? The first one is the steel springs. So in the steel springs, there are different types, that is leaf spring, Then we have the tapered leaf spring. Then we have the coil spring. So all these are steel springs. Then we have the torsion bar. The second type of springs is the rubber springs. So in rubber springs, different types are compression spring, then compression shear spring, then we have the steel reinforced spring, then progressive spring, then the fifth type of rubber spring is face shear spring, and the last one is the torsion shear spring. Then the third type of suspension spring is the plastic spring. The fourth one is the air spring. And the fifth one is the hydraulic spring. So these are the different types of suspension spring. So in this we are going to learn about steel spring, and we will learn about the leaf steel spring in detail. So we will discuss the construction of spring, that is the steel spring, and among that this is leaf spring. So steel spring, and in this we are going to discuss about leaf spring. So this type of spring is most commonly used in vehicle. The shape of these leaf springs is a shape as semi-elliptical leaf spring, and it is mostly used in suspension of light and heavy commercial vehicles. So it is most commonly used in vehicles. So the shape as semi-elliptical leaf spring, mostly used in suspension of light and heavy commercial vehicles. So these leaf springs are widely used for rear suspension. So here, if this is a vehicle and these are the front wheels and these are the rear wheels, so it is used in rear suspension. So suspension of the rear wheels is done with the help of this leaf springs. Widely used for rear suspension. But nowadays these leaf springs are being replaced by coil springs. So now we will see the construction. So in the construction, the spring, that is the leaf spring, consists of number of leaves called as blades. So these are called as leaves. So here we can see. So these leaves are also called as blades. So the longest length blade has eye on both its ends. So this is the longest length blade. So it has eye on both the ends. So this part is called as the eye of the blade, and this is also called as master leaf. So the spring consists of number of leaves called blades. So these blades are varied in length. So we can see that the length of this blade is changing. So this is the longest blade, this is shorter than that, and this is shorter than that. So the length of the blades is varying. Then the longest length has an eye on both its ends, and it is called as master leaf. So this is the master leaf. So all these blades are bound together by means of a steel strap or clip. So here we can see there is a clip or strap. So this clip or strap is binding these blades together. So all the blades are bound together by a steel strap. So this spring, that is the leaf spring, is supported on the axial by means of an U-bolt. So here you can see there is a rear axial. On the rear axial, with the help of a U-bolt, which is in the shape of U, this spring is supported. The spring is supported on the axial by means of U-bolt. So one end of this spring is bolted on the frame with a simple pin with rubber of bronze bushes. So here this one end of this spring is bolted on the frame. So this is the frame. So one end is fitted with simple pins and a rubber bronze bush. So you can see one end of the spring is bolted on the frame with simple pins with rubber bronze bushes. The other end is connected to the frame with a shackle. So here you can see the other end of the spring is connected to the frame with a shackle. So this is called as the shackle, which is in the oval shape. So the other end is connected to the frame with shackle. So this will give flexible connection as the length of the spring varies or changes with road projections. So this shackle and rubber bush will give a flexible connection because the length of this spring will vary based on the road projections. Changes with road projections. So we have already seen what is the working or what is the purpose of this suspension system, and we have studied about the suspension spring.